So thank you again for being here in this presentation. We are going to go through the Scorpio-Libra retrograde Venus cycle, but my intention is to use a myth and incorporate it in this cycle and go in a deeper level. And this is going to be through Jason and Medea. So, it's not going, sorry, here. The asteroids of Medea, Jason, Creus, and Glavk are here to narrate a story and not to be interpreted as planetary objects. The myth in which these characters are involved will help us deepen into the emotional, spiritual, personal, and social issues described by the retrograde cycle of Venus during the following period, which means that the central object of understanding is actually Venus. But Jason and Medea are here to help us. So, how did I choose those asteroids? It happens that Medea is in the 9th degree of Scorpio, just like Venus is, and stations there. Jason is found in the 10th degree of Aquarius, where Mars is there. Creus, which is the father, we will see it later, the father and the daughter together, they share the same name, which is in Corinthos, and Jason fell in love with his daughter, is in the 20th degree of Leo, and Glavk, which is the object of desire, is in the 7th degree of Libra. We will see this later. We will start first to understand talk about a little bit about the Venus retro cycle, and to say that Venus is the brightest star in the night sky after our satellite, the Moon. She is an inferior planet and the closest in distance to us. From Earth's geographic point of view, Venus cannot recede from the Sun, more what's known as the elongation, and that's more than 47.8 degrees. So that's always, whenever we have the Sun in a position, Venus is going to be either 2 signs ahead or 2 signs behind. Venus shares so many similarities with Earth, such as the size, mass, and proximity to the Sun, that we call her the sister and twin planet. Other than that, there are huge differences between the 2 planets, such as the atmospheric conditions, but the major difference is that Venus's orbit direction is opposite to ours, which means that she spins around her axis from west to east. So in a sense, Venus movement is always retrograde in comparison to the rest of the planets in our solar system. Planet Venus is the representative of beauty and harmony, and she lives up to her reputation through her retrograde cycles. Within an 8-year period, there are 5 retrograde cycles following a specific pattern. After each cycle completion, the retrogradations are repeated and approximately 2 to 3 degrees earlier than the previous points. So, for example, in the current cycle, Venus will retrograde at 10:15 here of Scorpio, while 8 years ago, Venus retrograded at 13 degrees of Scorpio, which is 2.63 degrees prior. This means that in order for Venus to retrograde from the final to the first degrees of a sign, it takes a long time, almost a century. Now, in December of 1906, we had the first entry of Venus in Scorpio, while being in retrograde motion, which means that we had 1 degree that she reached this sign from coming from Sagittarius. But it was on November 22nd of 1930 that we first had the Venus star point in Scorpio at 29:44. And I am talking about Venus star point in retrograde, coming from a retrograde motion. Now, the last one will happen on 2026, which is going to be on October the 24th, at 0:45. and that's during the next 8-year cycle from now. So we are in a cycle of Venus retrogression and star point, which is one ahead of the last one. We are coming to a completion. So when connecting all these stations per complete cycle, we come up with an almost perfect 5-star point, which is the pentagram. This symbol contains the great geometry, the divine unity, as it embodies all the elements, water, fire, earth, and air, whose union create the spirit, the ether. That's the psyche, that's the breathing. In Greek, if you the word psyche, which is psyche, means coldening, because as we breathe, a cold air comes out. Man hosts the spirit, mirroring the celestial perfection. Ancient Greeks referred to this perfection and this perfect geometry as the golden ratio. It's the golden rule, the divine analogy, the ratio of 1.618 to 1, okay, was the absolutely necessary in order for an object to have the ideal dimensions of beauty, a criterion that still applies. I mean, we still see how a body, a face, or any object, and you can see that in nature a lot, it always has this ratio in order to be a perfect. And since it comes from the nature, it's always perfection. So it is the balance between the extremes, between tension and relaxation. The golden ratio was highly used by architects and artists, and became the secret symbol of the Pythagoreans, characterized as the symbol of the heavens. It was applied in the construction of Parthenon and the Athenian treasury at Delphi. It is actually the 5th harmonic, where if we divide the 360 degrees of a cycle by 5, we come up with a 72. The 72 degrees quintile is linked to talents, aesthetics, higher sensitivity, genius, and the desire to create things as perfect as possible. This 8th cycle I have here to show you how we go for the next 8 years. So it comes from Scorpio, it goes to Gemini, and then Aries, and then from Aries it goes to Scorpio. You see, it's like coming to the opposites, not one next to the other. There is a mystic symbolism behind the number 5. That's why we have the 5 here. And also in numerology, if you know, 5 is in the middle of the 10. So if a person has this number, the 5, it's a very, very powerful number, which can either generate good or very bad. So it's like a magical. And if you see the number, which is for the asteroid of Medea, is 2, 1, 2, which gives 5. So we are 2, coming 1, coming 2. Also a very strong symbolism. So according to Pythagorean sacred number, 5 is always the outcome of an odd and one even number, just like I told you about Medea now. The natural geometry of the pentagram is the symbol of the life itself. So something very, very interesting. As we said, in the pentagram, the Pythagoreans contained the 4 elements of the nature: water, earth, fire, and air, which compose the material world, and the 5th, which is the ether, as I told you, is the breathing, thought to be the pure essence that the gods breathe, but also, you know, it's a divine thing to have the breathing. See, this is how we are living. So this is filling the space where they lived for the gods, also for us, analogous to the air breathed by mortals. The 5th element was the spirit. Here, in the pentagram given, we see the elements either, the word is either, which is water, which is Gaia, earth, idea, which is the idea, the spirit. We have the fire, and we have also the air. So if you take the first number of each of these words, we have the word idea, you know, idea. So it's health. Idea is the word we still use in our language for health, and the Pythagoreans' use of this pentagram is recognized as the symbol of the internal health. The balance of the elements and their proper use gives physical health, but also is the prerequisite for spiritual health. It is also the basis for the proportion of the human figure, and each part is a golden proportion to all the other parts. Also, Leonardo da Vinci was highly associated with the divine proportion, as we can see in the Vitruvian Man. This is what I was telling you, that we have the same perfection in the analogies on our body. I would like to close this part by adding that in esoteric astrology, Venus is connected to the fifth ray, which is the level in which the soul is challenged to develop the higher understanding projected in the material world. So this is understanding is liberating. Here are all the stations and how Venus is going to move. We have from October 5th, which is retrogrades. Then what follows is the square of Venus to Mars, a 10-degree again. Then we have the sextile to Saturn. Then we have 26, which is very important, the Venus-Sun inferior conjunction. So Venus, the inferior conjunction means that the Earth with Venus is in the closest point, and this happens only when Venus is in retrograde motion. October 31st, we have the opposition with Uranus. And then this is a day when it passes to Libra, returns to Libra, and becomes a morning star. And through Libra, we're going to have a trine to Mars before it goes into stations and goes direct, 25th degree of Libra. And then lunations. I also included the September 25th because we had Aries moon opposing the Sun in Libra, which has to do a lot about the relationships and also about balancing, and not only with outer conditions, but also internal conditions. And this was also very important because it was squared by Saturn. So Saturn was there to show us the problem or make us become more mature, or force us to take action about how we see relationships and how we deal with affairs of love. There is another very important lunation, which is a new moon in Libra on October the 9th, 15th degree of Libra, which is going to be in a square with Pluto. So this is a very Plutonian period. If you take into consideration that Venus is found in the sign that Pluto rules, Scorpio. So it is very, very connected, the two of them. And then what follows is October 24th, we have the full moon of Taurus and Scorpio, in which Taurus moon is going to be in a close conjunction to Uranus. And then we're going to have on November the 7th, a Scorpio new moon. This time it's going to be with sextile to Pluto and trying to Neptune at the 15th degree of Scorpio. So the myth. Let's go to the myth. What I want to tell you is that the aim of the Greek tragedies was not to have an exact portrayal of life events, but to raise philosophical questions. There are often hidden messages about the relationship of the humans with the universe, also the relationship of the humans with nature, and of course, the human relationships, whether it's one-to-one or to the society as a whole. The Greek words, the Greek language, and as an extension to that, the myths and ideas are multi-layered. So it's not only what you hear to take it. There are also meanings found in the words, but also in the ideas that are covered. Let's say that's why I said it's multi-layered. But in a way, these are two connected to each other. And the use of the dramatic poetic logos, which is described by Aristotle as the highest kind of art, is to convey on the stage those human actions which will bring on the surface emotions intending to touch the souls and to be taught. And that is because they have somehow understood that what really motivates people, it's the emotions, and what we have already as a memory hidden in the amygdala, on the brain. So even though we think that we think, actually everything comes out in a very instant and instinctive way. And everything is hidden there. The most basic, let's say, feelings, which are love, but fear also. So there's also plasticity, which means that one myth may have multiple versions. Regarding Jason and Medea, what I really want to tell you is that everybody knows Medea as the killer of her children. And this is something that didn't exist prior to Euripides. This was his own version, and he did that because he wanted to touch new social problems in the society of that time, which still, of course, exist and are very, very, very important to us. So let's go to Jason. Jason, Iason in the Greek language, means the healer. Iaso is the daughter of Asclepius, and iatriki is the word for using for medicine. And as always, it all begins with the kingdom. The kingdom, because kingdom is us, is ourself. We have our own kingdom, which what happened? We always looking to be the best rulers and to become the best kings of ourselves and of our lives. And you know, Leo is connected to the sun, which is the king also, so everything is connected there. We are looking to find our light and have the best version of ourselves. So Jason was the legal king of Iolkos, son of Aeson. But when he was underage, and it was his uncle Peleus who occupied the throne, and Jason was sent to Pelion, where Centaur Chiron raised him and taught him the art of medicine. So as we said, Iason, Jason means healer. So Jason is a symbol of cure and healing, and a natural and physical power. However, as we go on, the story goes on, we understand that he's the one who is in a need to be healed through the consequences of his actions. So this is something that we're going to see later. Once he reached the age and he became like, now it's 18, he decided to return to Iolkos and claim the throne. On the way to Iolkos, he met an old woman. And this woman asked him, could you please pass me, help me pass the river? River, that's a symbolism of emotions again. So without even thinking about it, he put her on the shoulders and he helped her pass the river. But while passing the river, he lost one of his sandals. So he became the one sandaled. He didn't know at that moment that the woman, this old woman, was actually Hera, the goddess, the mother of all. And so she was testing him. So once he saw that he did help her, she says, I'm going to protect you. I'm going to be your goddesses. Hera is where heroism comes. So when we are talking about heroes, we always have to think about Hera, the mother of all. So Jason continued and went to Iolkos, but when his uncle Peleus saw him, he remembered of an oracle saying that, be aware of the one sandaled. So in order for, to avoid him, what always happens is they say he sent him away and assigned him a task. And the task was, I want you to bring me the Golden Fleece. The Golden Fleece is linked to the constellation of Aries. And before that, there was, the story goes that it was Phrixus and Ellie who went to Kohlis and left the Golden Fleece. So now he wants it back. The Golden Fleece is Aries, it's the ram, but also it's gold and it protects you. So he made a team, the Argonauts, and he started to go to Kohlis. So Argo means quick. So he had a quick ship. Here we have the initiation of anglehood and manhood, because through he becomes a leader without prior experience. So what motivates him to go and do that? It is courage, it is boldness and impulsiveness that makes him not be afraid. So this is like our life. We start in the beginning of our life, we are going like with no prior experience, anything, but we just go for that. We are not afraid. We are doing it. It's in the meantime, in the process, that we become more mature, and by the experience, we either heal ourselves or we suppress ourselves. So what we see about this journey, it's very interesting. Throughout his journey, the female element prevails. I mean, it is described that he stopped in the Isle of Lemnos, and there were women there that were very fascinating, but there were no men at all. And so women invited him and the crew, but actually he was, he liked that because it was the first time, probably he was a virgin. And so it was the first time that he saw so many women asking for him. And it was only Hercules, again, hero Hercules, that he stopped him and said, don't stay here. You have another target, another goal to accomplish. So do not, go through these desires and be aware of women. So here I can see in this lunation that we spoke about earlier, in Aries and Libra squared by Saturn, I see like Hercules being the Saturn. I mean, bringing him back to order. That's what you have to do. Then during the journey, he meets the Amazons, also, again, only women. And it was the symbiotes that he had to go through. He also had the sirens. Everything in this myth has a lot of women to be afraid of. So what does this show us? It shows that this represents a fear of men in general about the female. This is the archetype of men and the archetype of female, of women. Women are like elements that monster, dangerous and bewitched, from which you have to learn to protect yourself. So, well, that's a fear that maybe men have, and because of their physical power, they don't show it like that. Also, this is a sexual element which presents the raw power of femininity, which can mislead you, but also the trap of the emotional desires a human can fall in. So once he arrived there, he went to Edas and he told him, I'm here to take the Golden Fleece. And so Edas said, oh, okay, go take it, no problem. By the way, it was dedicated to god Aries, Mars. So again, we see the element of Aries. But he said that I want you first to do something. So what he asked him, King Apis, is to plow the fields with the help of 2 bulls and sow the teeth of a dragon. This was a trap, and Medea, she knew it. So in order to protect the man she fell in love with, she gave him a magic filter to apply on his body and his shield. As bulls and land are evolved, we have the qualities of Taurus, as Jason has to sow the soil in order to get to the object he desires, the Golden Fleece. Medea is there to protect him, one of the multiple times she's going to do it in the future. About Medea, her name means to rule, to remember, to think ahead, to protect, and take care of someone. And she wasn't like one of the monsters that he had already met when he met during his journey. This woman is a princess of Colchis. She's educated. She's of higher intellect. She has magical power, a witch. And then, and this, telling someone a witch has a very bad reputation, being a witch. But actually what she had was magic. So, of course, being in love, she helped Jason to take the Golden Fleece. She escaped with him. And how did she do that? She lied on his promise for eternal love. For her, this was not just a promise. This was a sacred oath that they take together. She murdered Glavk and her father much later, for separating her from her husband. And of course, in the play of Euripides, she murders her children. And as I told you earlier, this was the only version of that myth where she killed her children. But we are going to see later what is the symbolism behind this. So before she lived, while she was living, Medea, it was her father that came after her, of course. And because she also helped him to take the fleece, and so the father wanted the fleece back. I don't know if he wanted his daughter or the fleece. And at the same time, it was her brother that came with her. But in order to stop his father and stop him and make him, don't come close to them, and of course, rescue for once again her lover, what she did was she cut her brother into pieces and threw all these pieces of body pieces in the sea, and made her father want to take one piece after the other. He was grieving, of course, because he lost his daughter and he also lost his son. As a symbolism, this what she did, it's like when a person disconnects from his family, when a woman leaves a family back and goes, to follow her husband. And in this case, it's more heavy, because not only she escapes from her family, she escapes from her country. So she goes to a brand new place where she knows nobody, just to be with the man she loves. So let's go here to Venus when the day she retrogrades. It's going to be in the 10th degree, as I said. And we see that Medea is close to that. And Jason is in the 10th degree of Aquarius, very close to Mars. That brings a conflict between the two of those. I mean, the desires and the sacred feelings that one have, or the repressed feelings that we have, and with Jason, with Mars, the Martian energy. So the female energy and the Martian energy are in a conflict. Venus is in close trine to Neptune, but here is the promise. Here is when we have the promise of Jason to Medea, telling her that, oh, I'm gonna love you forever and I want you to be with me. And she, of course, believes that. But as Venus retrogrades, this trine never comes into a completion. Chris, look at the moon. The moon is in the 27th degree of Leo. So here, also we have, you know, it's also a separating aspect from Jupiter. So the moon in the separating square to Jupiter describes an abundance of feelings and emotions, a conflict between light and darkness, because we have Leo and we have Scorpio. It's an internal urge to find the truth in our soul by killing what's drawing us in the mag. See the ugliness, transform, and reborn. Now, Leo is also connected to pride, but we have to think and consider which pride. Pride is having a sense of dignity, knowing who we are. It's the true self. If someone is not aware of that, the projection of the self is vulnerable and can be easily hurt, generating negative feelings such as anger, fear, jealousy, and revengeful reactions. And that's where we have to pay very, very much attention, because Scorpio is the sign of Martian and Plutonian energy. It's an environment in which Venus is not feeling comfortable. On the other hand, as the second sign of Libra as a relationship sign, also, of course, you have to always remember that also Scorpio is a relationship sign, but the one of not only connecting, but sharing and uniting in a deeper level. You belong to me, I belong to you. So that's the mood. I'll have to tell you also, we see that Aries is opposing Mercury. So this is sending in a sub-message to deal with matters of love, satisfaction, and balance. Because Aries also, you know, it brings a little bit of a challenge. It's not peaceful asteroid. Aries also is close to the Sun in Libra, where she's about to lose also her daughter Persephone for the underworld, a situation created because, again, love was involved, and the love of Hades for her daughter Persephone. So we have Venus and Mars square, as we said, on October 11th. And this has followed the new moon of in Libra square to Pluto, that Plutonian new moon that, as we said earlier. So have a look here again. Medea is again squeezed between Venus and the moon in Scorpio. That's a very, very heavy feeling, very heavy. And it continues, of course, the Plutonian theme that it shows. So in that Mars and Venus square, and of course, the lunation that is prior to that, we have to think a lot about, is it going to be following negative feelings? Is it going to be feeling betrayed? Or are we going to use this as transforming, as detoxicating ourselves, our emotions, and finding ourselves without allowing anybody shooting us or, you know, causing us pain? The pain is probably not real, but we are allowing it to hurt us and guide us. So here we have to have a clearance. It's a contradiction, it's a conflict, let's say, between the two male and female archetypes, which are not only has to do with relationships of a man and a woman, but it's also found inside us or in any kind of relationships. And also, it's a conflict about the outer energy and what we are going after, because Mars now is direct, and the true desires that we have. So if we do really like what we are going after, and not feeling. I actually believe it's better not to feel betrayed, even though, you know, it's a very hard square. And again, I tell you, because of the new moon that was in a square to Pluto. Okay, now look at that. We have this full moon that follows in Taurus Scorpio on October 24th. It's going to be in the first degree of Taurus Scorpio, and it's going to be in an exact square. I mean, so we have a cross, a grand cross with the nodes. So again, if you see Glafk, the asteroid, is found in the exact position where we had prior to that the lunation, the new moon. So now it's Glafk who is causing the problem. No, she is the problem, becoming the problem, sorry, without willingly want to be the problem. Okay, so if you do see all these combinations, we have Glafk being in a perfect trine with Mars. So now Mars is going after Glafk, and he abandons Medea. She is now hurt. And in that sense, Glafk is going to face her death for accepting to follow Mars. And of course, another interesting point, Krebs now is at the 27th degree of Leo, which was the point where the moon was positioned when retrograde Venus cycle started. That has to do with a king that was killed, another kingdom. If we are going after a new kingdom, Glafk is a new conquest. It's a new physical or material object of desire. So she brings a freshness of satisfaction, but it's only superficial. It's a substitute, in other words, it's an ego feeder, becomes an ego feeder to Mars. And since we have Uranus there with the moon, this is a very liberating point of what really we think that gives us stability, what gives us security, for what things we stay in a situation, what are the reasons that makes us stay in a situation, either physical or emotional, it doesn't matter. It could be your work, could be a marriage, could be a simple relationship, a friendship, whatever. But what is it that does not allow us to have this self-confidence? Because Taurus is very linked to the value we give to ourselves, not only to monetary things or valuing objects or money. This is like what you get back according to how you value your work, your efforts, or whatever you're doing. So here we have to see what is our value and how we value ourselves, related to anything that has to push us, that everything that pushes down, and find an internal balance that will lead us to health, to a healthy situation. Also here, that cross is the final cross of happening, whatever happens in the fixed cross, which started in the mid-May, as now the nodes are going to move back to Cancer and Capricorn. So the fixed cross, which has really, put us into difficult situation. I think summer was really hard. Why? Because everything that is very stable and set regarding everything we have, it's very difficult to change it. And the fixed cross is the consciousness we have about us, about our life, about our choices, about whatever, because this is how we gain a future stability. It's not just acting, it's to know what you're doing, to know where you're heading. As the North Node is in the sign of Leo, of the ego, it has to be cleansed. Having the square also of Uranus has to be purified and cleansed. Okay. And the next one, on October 26th, we reach the Venus star point. So the Venus star point is happening in the 3°06 minutes of Scorpio. And it's very, very interesting that last year on October 26th, the Sun-Jupiter new cycle began there in the zero, occurred there in the 0 degree of Scorpio 2. So you see, we have a repetition just before Jupiter leaves the sign of Scorpio. And here we have an opposition with the Uranus. As we said, this is connected also to the full moon that we had. And but this is trining to Saturn in a way. It's connected to Saturn, and we have two wedges. The first one that I'm going to explain to you is that in order to have this awakening and to be liberated, we have to do it in a very mature way. Just like Hercules was able to stop Jason from just, going around with women where he liked it. Here we have to use again a very sure attitude to know what we are doing, to be mature, to be grown up, to be grown. I have to tell you that this point is squaring also the eclipse that we had at the end of July, this summer, in the 4th degree. This was, of course, in Aquarius and Leo, but this is the point where it's squaring it. So once we had Mars doing the damage, now Venus is coming to clean all the mess that Mars did. And there are two phases, of course, of Scorpio. One is the mystical, one is the powerful, one is the healing one inside, and one is, in the other phase, is more evil, is more being jealous or being negative. So we have to choose which side we're going to take and how we are going to heal ourselves. There is another wedge, of course, and I'm talking about the opposition of Mercury and especially Jupiter to the moon in Taurus, and all this in trine and sextile to Athena. So why Athena is included here? Because the moon is right on the Algol. So when I was, started doing astrology, and I first heard about Algol, and I found out that I had a planet on there, Mars, I was really, really scared. I said, what's going to happen? Because it's the Medusa, the captivated, so, I was really afraid. So Medusa is a difficult and very, very deep myth to be able to do the symbolism behind and see it. Because it all started in the temple of Athena. She's the wise. Athena is the wise, but she's also virgin and pure, and she's in position. She's in Virgo right now. And there was this girl that, due to Poseidon, to Neptune, what they were, either she was raped, because this is how I told you that there are multiple versions. Either she was raped by Neptune, or she was, flirting with him. But Athena was very, very angry about this, and she turned him from a very beautiful woman, she turned him into a monster. And whomever she watched, looked at, become like a statue. So she had to be decaptivated by mirroring. So after that wisdom, Athena took the head of Medusa and put it on her shield. So that the mirror is, if you think about it, this is what we actually do when we are in relationships, all kinds of relationships. We are mirroring the ugliness of us to, choosing like attitudes that we also have it, but we see it and shoot it on the other person. So that's the mirror that we have to decaptivate it. Understanding what you're doing is what I am doing also. And wisdom comes from that. Athena, that's the wisdom. We have to be wise, not to be rational and logical. Rational and logical, many times, it's our depictions of our instincts or our emotions, and we translate it to I am logic, and I'm thinking logically right now. What we really need is wisdom, to be wise from what's happening. So as I told you earlier, Euripides approached the myth of Medea based on his intention to bring to our attention four basic characteristics which pre-existed in the myth, but also added them himself. It's the internal fight of Medea related to the conflict between anger and the correct decision-making. When she supposedly tried to, attempted to kill her children, she didn't do it like, oh, I'm going to kill them now. She was screaming, and she was in a deep pain, and she knew what she was doing. And there were, like from changing from one moment to the other, saying, what am I doing? And then, oh, I'm going to do it. What am I doing? Then I'm going to do it. So you see, there is this thing of understanding, which the anger that comes from inside, when it is suppressed, when it comes from buried emotions, and this creates, of course, the anger and the fear and the revenge and everything. Is it really worth to do it? The next one is that her desperate position of being a woman, but spiritually equal to male opponents. Even though this sounds very old, it still stands. Because women have this spirituality equal to men, sometimes greater, and in this case she was spiritually more advanced than Jason, but she couldn't use it for herself. I mean, she couldn't go ahead and show who she is. This we meet also very often in a family. You see, when a woman has to follow her man or follow his demands or follow, please him, and she puts aside her own needs in order to raise the children, in order to be close to the man and cook him. But also, when she is able to go out and work, these roles of the house are not shared. Usually, it's an additional thing that the woman has to do. And if you see in the work environment, when they're men, it's okay for them to be, the boss or to advance themselves and go, to take promotions. For a woman, and I know that a lot from friends and clients, it takes them the double to do the double effort in order for them to go up and to be in a similar position to men, to the male opponents, let's say. If she's hard, well, everybody was gonna say, oh, she's a witch or she's this and that. So everybody has something to tell about her. Whatever she does, it's something that you are judging it. But when a man do that, no one's judging, at least not as much as to a woman. The other thing is the counterpoint of two different kinds of happiness. It's the materialistic convenience represented by the sophist Jason, and the spiritual and emotional, almost sacred happiness represented by Medea. Also, it's the triumph of Medea when, from a victim of betrayal, she becomes a relentless avenger. So I'm going to tell you, Medea represents an inner aspect of us, which is hidden and powerful, willingly following the desires. Remember that she did the entire dirty job. So no one blames Jason for using her to get closer to his goals and ambitions. She betrayed her father. She killed her brother. She also killed King Peleus, with a trick, of course, but doesn't matter, in order for Jason to become, in the position that he had to come. So he wanted, and Medea was finding the solutions, but she was hidden. But nevertheless, she's not accepted, and Jason is always on the front. So coming to the term of children, to the factor of children, this is not the first time that we see in all these myths killing children. And Saturn ate his children. Even Uranus did it. Okay, let's follow it. Sorry, it was Zeus also who ate his wife when she was pregnant, because he was afraid of that somebody else is going to take his position if a male comes. And what is represented by the children? The children are a product of their union. This is when Jason and Medea unite. At the point she feels betrayed, as our soul and our true self realizes what has been sacrificed in order to satisfy our vanity, satisfy the others, the social demands, it's then when the soul craves to cut the connection with the past, kill the outcome, the creation of our insofar life. By killing the children, fifth house, think of Leo, think of Venus finding joy in the fifth house, being very happy. So all these things that we think we find happiness from, but it's not. So it's like sacrifice this by killing the children. Medea kills a part of herself, but also stops the perpetuation of Jason's bloodline, because once he realizes how he doesn't care at all about what she has done, and now he goes through something new, going after a new pleasure. She knows that she has done a lot for him and has to be stopped. So it's the subject used that makes the act heinous. But that was precisely the intention of Euripides. She could burn down the house or destroy his possessions, but the damage would have only been materialistic and could easily be replaced. So with her act, she wants to rip off and cauterize, burn, okay, the root of evil. She wants to create a shock to him. Children were sacrificed, but that happened in the temple of Hera. Remember, Hera was the protector of Jason, and this is exactly where Medea took the children, according to Euripides, I repeat, to supposedly kill them. So in a way, she made them immortal and took away their human nature. And Medea was not punished by the gods. She left for Athena after that. And once the gods do not punish a mortal for something, means that it's not such a sin, or they understand why she was doing it. They're in the part. There is a protection. So that's Scorpio. The pain and price stay this high, but that's the only way to heal and cure from toxicity. So what we have here in this myth, we have the emotions. This is the rationale, as we have explained earlier. If we have these emotions that are accumulating, and then at the end, the rationale cannot work. I mean, the wisdom cannot actually work. We can also say that Medea didn't put anybody, a knife on her throat and tell her, you have to do that. She willingly did it. She willingly followed those desires of Jason. And Jason and Medea are together, are one. He needs her in order to be cured. She is the cure to him. And he was one-sandaled, if you remember. Now, with Medea, he's not one-sandaled. He has found the other half of him. And so they're like the one supplements the other. So here we have also from the Scorpio and all these myths and the retrograde motion, we have the sexuality. There are people out there who are fighting for sexual things. We do have this very open and talking about the third we say one man, one woman, and the third, I'm sorry, I forgot the word. The third man, let's say, no man, no woman. And also how much we are sacred connection through that sexuality, because sex, it's a sacred act of connecting the body and the soul. But here we had, I remember, I read somewhere about, it was mid-September when a man in Brazil woke up his partner in the middle of the night because he wanted to have sex, and she said, I'm very tired, and they had the 6-month baby, so she had all these things on her head. He got so furious about not being a male, not accepting his manhood, and not submitting to his sexual desires, that he actually, in order to take revenge from her, he killed their baby. So you see, this is not something that you see it in a woman. This happened actually from a man, and it did happen on mid-September. And I just wanted to see the chart of that. And Venus, was in, again, Medea in exact conjunction, second degree it was, of Scorpio. Also, we have the physical and emotional isolation. And this term is isolating. This, you can find that she came from another country. So this also can be a theme about people who are coming, going to another country and feeling very isolated because they're not accepted. And they put, somebody may put, you're from here, you're from there, or you're my enemy because you're from there. So that's also does not help people to come together. That's a prejudice that is created, again, about feelings of hatred or revenge or remembering the past or whatever. So that's a blocking of having good relationships. So bringing peace, both in a personal level also and a universal level. So it's very easy to be tricked about someone, higher than us, using all these emotional things and use us, because actually we are used for doing that. So we come to the women to men relationship factor. So it's love. How do you love? This antagonism and possessiveness. And I don't want to excuse what, totally about the Scorpion energy, because as I said, there are two ways to go there. One is to try to connect, and one is try to possess the other one, and having the authority over the other person, doing what, becoming what you want him to become, because this creates you greater security for yourself. So in that way, you don't work with yourself. And that's really, really bad. Also, man-to-man relationship, as we said, like, friendships and at work. And we also have man-to-state relationship. That's a political thing. That's the political rationalism. So you see, in politics, I am watching the series with Escobar's life, and it was, was funny because I was repeatedly hearing him say, "You need war to get peace." Said the Aries moon, of course. But anyway, if you can understand what he did was, he drawn Colombia in a state of fear with murders and corruption, and he was playing the god. But he never managed to cure his Scorpion repressed feelings of isolation from the elite. His problem was the elite, because he was very poor, and he wanted to be accepted for becoming rich, no matter what the means were he used to go through that. So the power was misused, as he started in the beginning, helping, the poor people. At the end, he was so cruel about it. He was so focused about what he was feeling, all these repressed feelings that he didn't want to face, that he went to the extremes. And I didn't say that he was a good man in the beginning, but anyway, he went to the extremes. At that point, no one resisted. So that's also when you are, nobody goes against that power. And the ones that they did, which were few, paid the price. Of course, he killed them. And until the moment, he put a bomb on a plane. And the innocent people killed were their children, as described in the myth earlier, sacrificed. Unfortunately, some people had to pay the price and to become such a huge thing in order for people to wake up, because they were just not looking at it. They said, okay, it's not my, I'm afraid, it's not my job to do anything about it, so let him do whatever he likes to do. But then the price was very high. Also, it's the disconnection of humans from the mysteries in an attempt to rationalize everything. For example, like through scientific proofs. So that's Mars in Aquarius, and the mysteries, it's the Scorpio. And by the word mysteries, everybody knows that mystery means something you don't know. Okay, it's a mysterious thing. But we also have the mysteries of Eleusinian, the Eleusinian mystery. So how do these two words connected? The mystery came from the fact that in order to go into these Eleusinian mysteries, you had to be initiated, because that's exactly what mystery means, initiate somebody. In order to go to the other side, where the rest of the people, the majority was not, you had to be initiated. So, mi menos, mystery. So this is how it was left. We have our own personal mysteries. We have to be initiated. And we have to accept not to disconnect from the fact that there is something higher. So we as astrologers often have these attacks from scientific proofs, let's say, about, well, what we are doing, and this is like magic, and this is nonsense, and whatever. So that's also an example of such a thing. And last, we have the concept of nature per se, who punishes the male arrogance and domination. Men forgot that they are part of nature and placed himself against nature. Men place themselves. We place them. So how did you see? Like natural disasters causing human casualties. Unfortunately, We recently had that in Greece on the summer, and children, and in reality they were children, but anyway, people were sacrificed to bring awareness. They were the victims that were sacrificed. I didn't want to see them as victims. I said during the summer that these people are here to, their loss is here to awaken us for paying attention to nature, not be so arrogant about where we can build houses and what we can do in the cities, or burning or the trees, or cutting the trees, or using all the resources, taking them from the nature and drawing her, because at the end, like Medea, nature is going to come back and heal. So what do we have in terms of Scorpion energy and the Venus there? Once the outer power is imposed to us, we become smaller. So the inner self is suppressed. When we allow fear to open the door, we can tolerate everything, and we are suppressed. When we close the door to fear, and allow ourselves to feel true love towards ourselves and know the desires that we have, then the inner power is imposed towards outer environment, and we have the control over the outer environment. And that's something I want you to food for thought, to understand that we have so much great power inside us, that actually fear is the one that stands as an obstacle to conquer the truth and love, and be who we really want to be, and not what others want us to be. So thank you from my heart. I send my love all around the world, especially to Turkey, because you're all here. Thank you very, very much. And Anna, thank you.